Welcome to the Economy Magazine at I-24 News, where we provide a daily view on the world markets and the global economy. I'm Natalie Ehrlich. Coming up today, a makeshift pharmacy takes shape in India as the nation still struggles to meet its healthcare needs. An estimated 750 million people still lack access to essential medicines. And Qatar's economy expected to grow 5.4% this year, thanks in part to construction leading up to its hosting duties for the upcoming 2022 World Cup. Onto the headlines. Well, Asian markets mostly fell on Tuesday over the continued uncertainty over a possible rate hike in the United States. Japan's Nikkei managed to close at 0.15%. China's Shanghai lower 0.12%. And the Hang Seng down almost 1.5%. Europe seemed to follow the global sell-off. By the afternoon, London's FTSE slipped 0.52%. Germany's DAX declined 0.42%, and France's CAC down 0.67%. U.S. stock index futures also pointed to a lower open, and we'll have expert analysis on the markets as well as the Fed just later in the program. Well, U.S. President Barack Obama and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu agreed on Monday to expedite talks on a new 10-year U.S. military aid package for Israel. The moment marks an unusual accord between the two leaders, whose relationship has been ripe with acrimony, especially leading up to the signing of the Iran deal. Well, an American team is slated now to arrive in Israel at the start of December to begin discussions likely to continue for several months. Talks were supposed to end in 2017, the deadline of the current military aid package, but President Obama wants to complete negotiations before he leaves office in 14 months.
The United States supports Israel to the tune of $3 billion a year. You spent on the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq $1.5 trillion. So that's 5 centuries worth of support for Israel.
China apparently is working with other countries now to urge the United States to ratify IMF reforms. A Chinese central banker made the comments at a briefing in Beijing on Tuesday ahead of the Chinese president's attendance at the G20 meeting in Turkey, as well as the APEC summit in the Philippines. However, he did not provide any details as to which countries China is actually working with. A few days earlier, China's finance minister revealed Beijing had urged Congress to adopt overhauls, giving emerging markets a bigger say at the IMF.
Over the past few years, China, together with other countries, has been urging the US to pass and implement this reform proposal, and we call on all sides to do the utmost to protect the IMF's reputation, legality and effectiveness.
European officials indicated the EU would release the next round of loans for Greece and money for bank recapitalization only after Athens implements the agreed reforms. A European central bank stress test showed at the end of October the Greek banks needed a total of 14.4 billion euros in additional capital if they were to survive a scenario of difficult economic conditions. Well, some of this needed total is likely to come from private investors, but the EU will have to provide the rest, using all or part of the 10 billion euros already earmarked for Greece.
10 billion has already been put in a segregated account in the ESM, which is ready, if needed and when needed, for the recapitalization process. But of course, the agreed conditionalities need to be met.
For now, for insight on the world markets, we are joined via Skype by Andy Bush, a financial markets expert in Chicago. Thank you, as ever, for being with us.
My pleasure.
Well, what is the latest on the Fed?
Well, the latest is this. The unemployment data that came out of the United States was extraordinarily strong. They revised up the last couple of months, and this puts the Fed on target for raising rates in December. As a matter of fact, I would say I would almost guarantee it. If the Fed does not go in December, they will absolutely lose the markets and lose tremendous amount of credibility. So they have to raise rates in December.
That's an excellent point here. The markets do seem nervous about that, especially in Asia. It also seems that the Fed and the ECB are heading in totally opposite directions now. Any insight on Europe's expanding QE program?
Right. So this came after the comments by Draghi saying that they would definitely look at the December meeting to increase the size of their quantitative easing. Now, subsequently, they've kind of walked that back a little bit. You saw a bit of a rally in the euro, and then it went the other way very strongly. We're right back down to the lows. the European Central Bank and the Fed are absolutely going in opposite directions. The European Central Bank is engaged in quantitative easing and likely to add. The Fed has stopped quantitative easing and is likely to raise rates. That's why the euro's at 107 and likely to go to parity within the next 3 months.
Well, that's really interesting. What effect could that have on the export economy for the U.S. and also the European economy?
Right. It's certainly one of the reasons why people are buying German stocks. They like it. They like the fact that Germany exports a lot to other countries, mainly within Europe, but also to the United States. As far as the U.S. goes, this will hurt S&P earnings, that's for sure, where over 40% of S&P companies, their earnings come from overseas. So it will be negatively impacting the U.S. stock market. So stocks will probably waffle a bit at the best for the U.S. around these levels. So keep that in mind. As the dollar strengthens, that's a positive for Europe, positive for our other countries outside the United States. For U.S. earnings, it will hurt them.
All right, but it won't really hurt the U.S. economy, correct?
Well, it depends on how you look at it. I mean, as far as exports go, it's less than 15% of the U.S. economy. But as far as earnings go, that makes a much larger impact on U.S. companies. So the GDP won't change a whole lot, but earnings will.
All right, excellent point. Thank you as ever. Very much appreciate it. Moving on now to another part of the world. Universal health care was a key election pledge for Narendra Modi in 2014. But despite this, some 750 million people in India lack access to essential medicines.
A pharmacy with a difference in downtown Delhi. For years, this man has been collecting unused medicines before handing them out to the poor.
Now a man who sleeps on the footpath, eats there and lives there. Where will he get the medicine from? I was shocked. Medicines are there in every household. Every house has some medicines, but they all end up in dustbins.
Universal healthcare was a key election pledge of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's 2014 campaign. Despite this, around 750 million people in India still lack regular access to essential medicines. While treatment in public hospitals and charity-run clinics like this one is free, drug samples are often scarce, and the influx of patients puts a strain on the system.
Examination time in government hospital, they say it is 20 seconds, average time. They go so fast.
India spends just 1% of its GDP on public health care. That's less than neighbouring Sri Lanka or Bangladesh. But the government has promised to take action.
The system must make sure that these drugs are available, and they should not say that it is out of stock. So management of the hospital should be fixed up the responsibility that such drug is not available, then the action to be taken against the management. That is the only way.
Healthcare is big business here, with Delhi and Mumbai boasting some of the world's largest pharmaceutical companies. Change, though, looks needed to harness this expertise and help drag India's health system into the modern era.
And Qatar, its economic boom also highlights the need to improve infrastructure in its fast-growing capital. Yoni Dayan has the details.
As Qatar experiences rapid economic growth and immigrants from around the world find their way there, urban spaces like Doha are working to adapt to the changes, challenges, and opportunities. The second Future Landscape and Public Realm Qatar conference held in Doha this week focused on these issues and more as Qatar sees fast growth ahead.
Doha is a city that went through a very rapid urban development. This has led sometimes to poor integration between public and private spaces. However, it's clear they're becoming aware of this, and platforms like this one are discussing this issue and how to overcome that shortage. Hopefully, new projects will take into account how to fill these gaps that resulted of the rapid urban development.
According to the Qatari Ministry of Statistics and Development Planning, 956,000 of the nearly 2.5 million people in the country live in Doha. 5 years ago, the total number in the country was just under 1.7 million total. Over that time, the population has grown by 7.2% per year, primarily attributable to migrant workers. With major infrastructure projects in the works as part of preparation for Qatar's slated hosting duties for the 2022 World Cup, as well as an expected $200 billion worth of building as part of its 15-year plan, the economy is expected to grow 5.4% this year, according to British bank Standard Chartered. The question being asked here is whether the progress will create livable spaces.
The challenge that the city is under development and there's a lot of construction in the city. The challenge is in the reaction or in the experience of the people to the city. I believe that people have not really yet experienced Doha fully. You know, it's going to be a wonderful place once it's completely constructed, and there are a lot of people, and there's a interaction that is felt.
And central to that interaction is the use of outdoor spaces such as public parks.
Amazing public spaces here in Doha, but certainly a lot of the public realm areas need to be more user-friendly, so that people can cycle to work, people can walk to school, and there's more public spaces for families to be outside and enjoy themselves.
But meanwhile, Qatar has had international pressure applied in recent months to turn around what have been reported to be slave-like conditions for many workers coming from abroad to find construction work. Indeed, in coming years, Qatar will have to take into account a solid balance of swift building, workers' protection, and an eye towards 21st century urban design as the Gulf state looks forward.
For insight on the Israeli economy now, we'll take a snapshot of the telecom sector. On Thursday, Cellcom Israel said it had agreed to buy upstart rival Golan Telecom in a move which quickly sparked backlash from Israeli media and politicians alike, who now see this move as a threat to current competition, which only in recent years resulted in more affordable cell phone plans. Now, for further insight, we have on set Hen Herzog, chief economist at BDO. Thank you very much for being with us today.
Hello.
Well, why does the Ministry here of Communication seem to support this merger?
Well, I think the Ministry of Communication now understands that the current conditions in the telecom market are not sustainable. They do not reflect situations that can sustain in the long term. Prices are low, and we all enjoy those low prices, but at such low prices, companies barely make enough money, investment level is going down, and this is not a situation that can go on forever. You know, Israel's economy always praised its high developed cellular network, but today, if you take a look at your cell phone, you may have a 4G icon on it, but you don't have 4G speed. You don't have 4G speed because the companies cannot afford at these prices to invest in modern communication systems.
Well, you mentioned this, that they're selling these plans at below market value. How is that possible?
Well, you're right. It's really a tricky question because you would ask in a competitive market, why would a company price its products below cost? Well, the situation here is that these prices were set in effect or in response to a government regulation. The government set a tender system that required the companies to pay a large deposit, 1 billion shekel deposit they paid, which will only get back to them if they achieved a market share of 7% within 3 years. So this forced the companies into a very particular business plan. They were not working like any other economic company that would achieve profits, reputation, market share, brand loyalty. No, the companies only looked at a single track, get market share and get it fast. Now, once this company achieves its market share, then they ask, what now? Okay, we got the 7% market share, we got our deposit now, what next? How do we make money? So, you know, this strategy of market share beyond all, it's like what you see in many internet companies that are trying to get market share in order what? In order to make an exit. So now the only option that in practice Golan has is to cash on its market share and move on.
Interesting point here. Just real quick, do you expect these prices to move up?
Well, these prices are not sustainable. So yes, they will go up. They will never go up, though, to the prices that we saw before the reform.
All right. And something that is interesting to point out here, typically governments are looking to protect the consumer. What do you think is going on in this case with the Israeli government?
Yeah, but protecting the consumer is a complex issue. It's not only a matter of prices. It's prices, it's quality of service. There are a lot of issues that need to be taken into account. And I believe that the Antitrust Commissioner, which have to take a decision on this issue, will have to balance between those interests.
So what other benefits could come out of this merger that the antitrust authorities wouldn't comment on?
Well, we have to weigh the alternative. The alternative, if they don't approve this merger, may be that Golan Telecom goes bankrupt, and then we're left with one less player. So this can be an opportunity for the market to create certain conditions for the merger that will allow prices to be relatively low and promote investment in the infrastructure.
All right, well, last word on this. Is it good or bad, this merger?
Well, it depends. It really depends on the conditions. I think it's no doubt that a company that is losing money and has only one choice to merge is bad. But it may be possible to turn out this negative thing into something that can be positive for the market.
All right, well, we'll be looking eagerly for that. Thank you, as ever, for joining us. And also, that wraps up our show today. Stay tuned here every day for all your business coverage. I'm Natalie Ehrlich. Thank you for watching.